Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're building with Flutter, you already know how amazing it is for creating beautiful UIs, like super fast. But have you ever stopped and wondered what's really going on under the hood? How does your code actually become pixels on a screen? Well, today, we're going to pop that hood and take a good look at Flutter's rendering engine.
We've all heard this a million times, right? It's probably the first thing you ever learned about Flutter. It's the mantra that's drilled into us. Everything is a widget. And it's a brilliant idea. It makes everything so much easier to reason about. It's our blueprint for the entire UI.
But hold on a second. Let's think about that blueprint analogy. A blueprint is just a plan, right? It's a set of instructions. A blueprint has never, ever built a house by itself. So if our widgets are just these immutable configurations, these plans, then who's the construction crew? Who's actually doing the work of laying the bricks and painting the walls? And that, right there, leads us to what we could call the myth of everything's a widget. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a super useful way to think about it from our perspective as developers, but it's really just a high-level abstraction. Underneath that simple, elegant surface, there's a serious powerhouse of an engine doing all the heavy lifting for us.
Okay, so let's break this down. On one side, you've got the widget. That's our blueprint. It's just a description, a piece of data that says what the UI should look like. But on the other side, you've got the render object. This is the engine. This is the crew on the ground that knows how to actually do things, how to measure size, figure out position, and splash those pixels onto the screen. So how does Flutter get from our blueprint to a fully finished UI? Well, it uses this incredibly efficient process, kind of like an assembly line, called the rendering pipeline. And honestly, getting a handle on this pipeline is the secret to building seriously high-performance apps. This whole assembly line has three main stages, and they always happen in this exact order: layout, paint, and then compositing. A simple way to remember it is measure, draw, and assemble. So let's just quickly look at what each one does.
First up, we've got the layout pass. This is where Flutter walks down the tree of all your widgets and basically plays a game of negotiation. The parent widget tells its child, hey, you've got this much space to work with, what are you going to do? And the child figures out its own size based on those rules and reports back. This happens for every single widget until the entire UI has a concrete size and position.
All right. Once everybody knows where they're supposed to be, the paint pass kicks in. This is where things get visual. Flutter uses the super powerful Skia graphics engine. This is the same 2D powerhouse behind things like Google Chrome and Android, and it starts drawing everything. Now the key here is that it's not drawing straight to the screen. Think of it more like an artist painting on different transparent sheets, one for each layer. And that leads us perfectly into the final step, compositing. The GPU steps in, takes all those separate pre-painted layers, and just squashes them together into the single final image that you actually see. Because all the hard drawing work is already done, this step is lightning fast, and that's absolutely crucial for getting those silky smooth 60 frames per second animations. Okay, so now we get the pipeline. That's cool. But how do we, as developers, get our hands dirty and interact with it directly when we need that extra bit of performance? Well, that's where a very special kind of widget comes into play: render object widgets. These are literally our keys to the engine room. You can think of a render object widget as the bridge between our high-level widget world and that low-level rendering engine. It's a special widget that knows exactly how to create and manage a specific render object. When we use these, we're not just handing over a blueprint anymore. We're walking onto the construction site and giving direct instructions to the crew. And that, as you can imagine, can give us some huge performance wins. But of course, you wouldn't use a sledgehammer to hang a picture frame, right? Different jobs need different tools. So, to really optimize our apps, we need to open up the toolbox and know exactly which tool to grab for the job at hand. And when it comes to this stuff, there are really three main tools, three subclasses of render object widget that you've got to know. Just think of them as specialized gear. One for simple, standalone things, one for things that wrap just one other component, and one for handling complex layouts with lots of moving parts. Now this chart here is, well, it's pretty much your cheat sheet. Look, if you're building something simple that has no children, like a custom icon or some kind of static graphic, you grab the Leaf Render Object widget. The performance gain is massive because Flutter just gets to skip all the logic about children entirely. Now, if you're just wrapping a single child, maybe to add some custom padding or a cool border effect, the single child render object widget is your best friend. It's still super fast.
And finally, for the big jobs, like a custom row or your own version of a grid view, you'll reach for the multi-child render object widget, which is built to handle lots of children in the most efficient way possible. So why do we even bother digging into all these low-level details? What's the point? Well, because understanding this stuff is what takes you from building a good Flutter app to building a truly great, professional level one. The payoff is absolutely huge.
Look, here's the bottom line. Picking the right tool for the job gives you real, tangible benefits. Your app renders faster because you're telling Flutter exactly what to do, and more importantly, what not to do. Your app uses less memory because you're not wasting it on children that don't even exist. You get this incredible fine-grained control to build UIs you just can't make with the standard widgets. And, probably most important to your users, all of this adds up to buttery smooth animations and an experience that is totally free of that frustrating jank.
So yeah, everything is a widget is a fantastic way to start your Flutter journey. But knowing what's underneath that simple phrase, that's where the real power is. You've now got the keys to Flutter's rendering engine. So the only question left is, what awesome high-performance UI are you going to go build with them? Thanks for tuning in.